DC and Derrick Lewis goes down live tonight on pay-per-view. What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan Thomas. Thank you for joining me for a better late than never edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, once again, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. What a busy few weeks it's been for yours truly, Ryan Thomas. Great show that I was a part of last Saturday, October 27th, the first annual Buffalo Podathon, which took place live at the Walden Galleria Mall, which was a fantastic event that raised proceeds for BB&G Charities. Check it out on Twitter. Check it out on their website, bbandgcharities.com. All proceeds go to great causes around Western New York. And I was joined by the triplet of Train Wreck Sports, Ty B, the Maniac, Degenerate Al. Great time joining those guys. Great meeting those guys as well. They were very, very gracious with their time, allowing me the time to discuss some of the biggest topics in sports, especially some of the biggest topics in sports surrounding Western New York, particularly the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bulls, the UB Bulls. What a fantastic season they have had, 8-1, coming off a massive win over Miami of Ohio. What a victory that was for UB. I was in attendance with Anthony Chandra. Awesome dude and awesome performances, particularly by Anthony Johnson, the wide receiver for UB. We'll get to him in a little bit. What a fantastic performance by UB versus Miami of Ohio. Their defense, not so much. It got a little close. It got a little testy there for a little while. But UB was able to pull out the W, and that was great. All that being said, we do have some fights to discuss. And tonight is the night. Well, Daniel Cormier will attempt to defend his UFC heavyweight title versus Derrick the Black Beast Lewis, who is 9-1 in his last 10 fights. That one loss by the Super Samoan Mark Hunt. Derrick Lewis, since that loss, has rattled off tons of victories. One, not really one of the best fights in recent memory versus Francis Ngannou, but nonetheless, Derrick Lewis is not a guy that anybody should be looking at as an easy opponent. Derrick Lewis is not a guy that anybody should sign to fight on 4 weeks' notice. Not even Daniel Cormier. I would go as far as to say that this is the biggest risk of Daniel Cormier's career taking this fight, due to the fact that he is a champ. He is the champ at light heavyweight. He is the champ at heavyweight. Whether we want to admit it or not, we know who the real champ is at light heavyweight, but that's another story. John Jones. All that's another story. But this is a new story in the career of Daniel Cormier. The fact that he is the UFC heavyweight champion. The fact that he does have an opportunity to defend this heavyweight title versus a man that not many people want to fight. Derrick Lewis is a tough guy to get people to sign to fight for, because with a win, it's just another opponent. With a loss, you're moving back down the ladder. Ask Volkov about that, the man that Derrick Lewis just knocked out on the biggest card in UFC history. UFC 229, Khabib versus McGregor. In that fight, you see a fighter badly beaten, you see a fighter badly worn out, and you also see a fighter bounce back, show that true quote-unquote eye of the tiger, and put Volkov down like a rabid dog, which lent itself to him being given this title shot, and rightfully so. It is hard, very hard. This is not boxing. This is not a sport where you can pad your record. It is extremely hard to win 9 out of 10 fights in MMA, let alone in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, where you have the best fighting the best. And Derrick Lewis has done that. So, for anyone thinking that just because the fighter in Derrick Lewis is taking this fight on 4 weeks' notice, and that is a detriment to his chances in this fight, I think that is a true feather in his cap. Not only does this guy have the balls to step in there and take this fight on 4 weeks' notice, not only is Derrick Lewis on the huge spotlight at Madison Square Garden, not only is Derrick Lewis being given a title shot, he is smart enough to have the wherewithal to know that, yeah, he does have a bit of a cardio problem. Yes, he does have problems lasting past the second round, maybe even the first round. But he realizes that coming off a 4-week camp, this is his best opportunity to win a title fight because he's in fantastic shape. He's coming off of a training camp. What better physical condition could you be in at this point in terms of Derrick Lewis? DC is coming off the couch. There's a lot of reasons to think that Derrick Lewis can win this fight. There's more reasons to say that he can win it compared to the reasons that say that he can't. Granted, DC has been fighting bigger men than him his entire career. He has a size disadvantage in virtually every fight. Alexander Gustafsson, John Jones, Stipe Miocic, those guys have had distinct size advantages over Daniel Cormier, and guess what? He either gave those guys a tough night or he whooped their asses. So we do have to discuss and distinguish, I should say, who Derrick Lewis is fighting outside of those loss and quote-unquote no contest to John Jones. Daniel Cormier is one of the best MMA fighters that the world has ever seen. And it's tough for me to say that because there have been some performances that haven't been the most entertaining. UFC 200 versus Anderson Silva comes to mind, but granted, he wasn't expected to fight Anderson Silva, and he took him on less than 24 hours' notice. So I can't really say that, but I just felt that way after that fight was over, I guess. What I'm trying to say here, though, is that I've heard a lot of chatter about whether or not Derrick Lewis can win this fight. And I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand how people do not realize what sport we're talking about. We're talking about fighting. This is not football. This is not baseball. This is not one of the recreational sports with a ball. This is fighting, where one punch is all it takes. The question is, can Derrick Lewis defend the Olympic caliber wrestling of Daniel Cormier? I don't know the answer to that question. That's a question that will be answered tonight. I have an answer. I have a retort to that question. It's not so much can Derrick Lewis defend the takedown from Daniel Cormier. How long can Daniel Cormier last standing up with Derrick Lewis? Because this guy is not someone that you want to stand with. He's knocked out plenty of his opponents that he has faced. He has one of the best knockout ratios in UFC history. DC's fought another man that had a great knockout ratio in his career. That man was Anthony Rumble Johnson. He was able to take him down. He was able to submit him in both performances. I would assume that is the game plan for Daniel Cormier in this one. Try to get him down, try to wear on him, and eventually submit him. Whether Cormier can do it or not remains to be seen. But that's why these fights are made. This is an intriguing fight. This is a fun main event at a time in which we needed a fun main event. Not one with much trash talk, but one with some friendly banter. And also a co-main event that is a very, very pivotal fight inside the UFC's middleweight division. We'll talk about that. But if I were to give a prediction, of course I would go with Cormier. I'll pick Cormier right now. There. But this is the fight game. Anything is possible. Anything can happen. And Derrick Lewis wants to be one of many to prove it. We'll be right back for my prediction on the co-main event for tonight. Chris Weidman takes on Jacare Souza. Who do I see winning that fight? Tune in.